This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 322 of the CineSnob Podcast. My name is Cody Villafana, and I am joined here by Kiko Martinez and Jocelyn Durand for this week's episode. And for those watching, and I guess for those listening, you see here a new intro for us. Kiko, we have a new animated logo, and it's pretty cool. I really like it.
Yeah, I was happy with what they did with it. I was able to get our CineSnob.net logo animated. I gave them some direction of where I wanted to go, and they hit it out of the park. So I'm really happy with it. It's just a little bit of a teaser of what's going to be coming up in the next 8 days. We're going to be relaunching CineSnob.net. Don't go to it now because it's a mess. But if you do go to it, it's going to not look like that, of course. And we'll have the podcasts in the spotlight a lot more, and it'll be easier to go through everything and not get lost in a very messy website, which it has been kind of dormant for the last couple of years. So, like I said, it's not a excuse or anything, but it kind of is. When COVID hit, I think I lost my mojo.
Like Austin Powers.
Yeah, exactly. But I've gotten it back, guys, and we're going to be relaunching again in about a week. Actually, and not tomorrow, or I don't know when you're hearing this, but it'll be launching on April 21st. So that's next Monday. So we're really excited. A lot of things going on, and let us know if you like our little animated logo.
Jocelyn, you have an opinion?
Yeah, what did I say? I was like, I like that it's like flirting with me, and you're like, yeah.
I what I told you was that Kiko requested to make him slutty.
Yeah, I was like, he's like flirty with me, and you were like, yeah, I asked for slutty.
It's I mean, I felt bad about it and weird about saying that we've been like hard at work trying to redesign the site, but I think we actually have been a little bit like working pretty hard to try to get it to where we want it to be, and it's been a real team effort. And what I was going to say before we started recording was that with this, I humbly have accepted new roles as managing editor of CineSnob.net, and thank you, Jocelyn. And Kiko, what I was going to ask you was like, do I have hiring and firing power over Jocelyn with this new role?
I don't know. It depends on which way you're going to go, because I've grown to like Jocelyn a lot. So if you're deciding that you're going to have to go the Elon Musk route and start cutting
I think
indiscriminately.
Texas is an at-will
state.
It is.
Yes. So I don't have to have cause.
I would have no ramifications.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have no leg to stand on as far as that goes legally.
Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering how far I can push this.
Probably not with Jocelyn, but we can always say that you were the one that let Jared go if we want to.
Okay, I'll take credit for that. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. That'll give you a little bit of a street cred there.
I appreciate that. I'm sure Jared would back me up too if I needed just the cred. He would be willing to take the fall for me.
Yeah,
so
and we're not letting Jared go at all. I mean, he's still part of the new website. We've kept him in there, and of course I've let him know. Whenever he wants to come in for a Transformers review or Marvel
or
review,
Wicked 2.
or Wicked 2.
Oh yeah,
he's more than available, or more than welcome to join us. So.
Yeah, or if they ever make like another Muppets movie, or I'm trying to think what's in his wheelhouse here. Muppets, Transformers,
Jurassic Park.
If there's ever a Gallagher biopic, Jared will be here first thing. Yeah.
Well, we'll probably see him for the Jurassic Park in a couple of months. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
you guys got into it about wrestling one time on one of my first episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a fun one.
How over the head was that for you?
Were we talking about Iron Claw? Was that what it was? Or?
No, God, no. I wish. Oh, wait. Maybe it was. No. It was way before that, and it wasn't something good at all. But I was literally watching a tennis match. I was just had nothing to add. I mean, I'm a child of the '80s, so I liked Hulk Hogan was my favorite when I was little.
Mm-hmm. Everybody in the '80s has a little bit of history with the WWE or WWF.
But definitely not enough to contribute to their argument. It was
it was the
best.
My wrestling days ended when I was 8 or 9, but
yeah. I can't remember. So I know that we had conversations with Iron Claw, but I don't remember. I remember having some kind of I think it was it about the David Arquette movie?
Yes.
Was that what it was?
It was the one.
Okay.
It was like the documentary, and
Yeah.
he was like trying to become. Yep, that was.
So
exactly it.
Jared thought it was all a work. He basically thought everything that you were seeing in that documentary was fake, and I was like, I think that there are parts of this that are indeed real.
No, because I could have contributed to that conversation. Then y'all got into like the weeds about like actual wrestling.
Jared and I getting into the weeds, I don't buy it. I don't believe you.
Wait, does Jerry really think that professional wrestling is real? Or-
No, he's
That
on
was
the
part
opposite
of,
side.
That was part of the.
Jared
you-
thinks it's all
argument, though.
fake.
Oh, it's all fake. And you think that there's some pain involved, right?
Yeah, I think that there's elements of it that are like yeah, painful or where people get, like their feelings, their big egos hurt and stuff like that.
Like
yeah.
someone died. I mean.
Well, no, people have died. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think the physical aspect is mostly real, not all of
Yeah.
it, but of course, you can see where people slap on, on other.
It was a good documentary.
hands.
I liked it, but it was
The
quite
Arquette
silly.
one?
Yeah.
It's really good. I actually did. Kiko, did you ever see that? The David Arquette wrestling?
I didn't, no. I
It's
was
not
thinking
really
of-
wrestling, but
Welcome back to COVID, man. These were like that was what we were doing back then, and it was
yeah,
It
it was
bizarre.
called You Cannot Kill David Arquette, and it was basically him.
Oh, okay, I remember that.
Yeah,
I
it was
didn't see
basically him like getting into wrestling, and basically the perspective. Jared's not here to argue this for himself, but like he was basically saying that the whole thing was like a setup, and very little of it. I don't want to say none of it, but very little of it was real. And I thought that there was some authenticity between real and what we call kayfabe, which is the
here we go.
the wrestling term for
Here we go.
being in character all
Oh
the
my
time.
God.
And
Good to know.
yeah,
I think on one of those documentaries that I've seen about wrestling, the only thing that I really learned is that I didn't realize how many veins were in the forehead.
oh,
And that's
like
where-
when you bleed.
So so when you cut like some of them would cut themselves with real
Yeah.
Right, with a razor blade or
with a
whatever.
razor blades right here on the forehead, and they would just gush blood,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of neat. But I would have
It
thought
is
it was
neat.
a lot more neat when I was 7. So
It's like in boxing movies when they're like, "Cut me,
cut me, Mick.
open." I love it. I
Yeah.
love boxing movies. Not so much wrestling, but
Well, speaking of boxing movies, we've also, if you've been following us on Facebook, we've been teasing the new website with some high quality memes going on. We're counting down, and we're trying to think of some good stuff to put out there. One of which I think yesterday was it was Rocky
Rocky 4.
4,
Yeah. When he
where
beats Ivan Drago at the end. Yeah.
where Rocky Balboa solves the Cold War by beating Ivan Drago and pulling together everyone by saying that like everyone can change, including the United States and Russia. It's a beautiful moment. And
we're trying to find moments, quotes in movies that kind of talked a little bit about change and evolution, just to kind of tie in how we're moving along with CineSnob and trying to figure out different ways to get more.
ooh, we need a Tree
audiences
of Life
involved, so.
one.
well, you were asked for your input and you haven't given anything
I
yet.
totally
so.
forgot until literally y'all are talking about it right now.
Kiko,
And I'm
I
like,
need you
"Oh,
to post the
crap."
one from today on CineSnob because I want to repost it because it's my favorite one so far. It's
Wait,
the
yeah,
Morpheus one from The Matrix, which features into one of our movies today. One of those actors involved in that meme is in one of the movies we're talking about today.
I'm asking now, Tree of Life. I want a Tree of Life one. I think that would
Find
be...
the quote.
Oh, oh crap.
Give me a dinosaur.
Kiko's the meme lord here, so he'll make one out of whatever you find.
Yeah, I went meme crazy one night and did about like 10.
Yeah.
But I still need a good 3 or 4 more to
Okay.
finish the week off.
Yeah.
Got it.
But other than that, so one thing that we're kind of bringing back here, so previously, so like way back when we first started, we had this segment that we had called The Real Rundown, where we were talking about movie news, and it's where we had our first round of beautiful arguments in this podcast about, interestingly, Kiko, I don't know how much you remember this, but we had a lot of arguments about Redbox and streaming and like all this stuff like pre-COVID, back when we were, ahead of the curve on this stuff, talking about where everything was eventually heading.
Yeah.
And we're talking about stuff, but we do want to bring back kind of talking about the top important and interesting bits of news in the movie world here. And for this week, there was one piece of movie news that I think was really interesting, which was that the Academy Awards announced that starting with the 100th Academy Awards in 2027, they would be adding a category for achievement in stunt design. So for the first time ever, the Oscars will be honoring stunt performers and stunt design in movies. Now, this is in addition to, I think next year is the first year where they're adding casting to the Oscars, where they're going to be providing an award for casting director. And yeah, this is a super cool thing. It's something that I think has been a long time coming, and certain critics groups, including ours, Kiko, and the Houston Film Critics Society, we have a stunt awards category. We had I don't remember if it was when we debuted or not, but we had Roger Corman at our award ceremony several years ago, and I think he was part of that, and I think someone who was a stunt coordinator's wife or something like that was at the. I don't remember who exactly it was. I apologize at that ceremony, but like, you know, talking more about that award, you know, I think it's something that. I saw a lot of people mentioning like this is a way to get people to get interested in the Academy Awards for like blockbusters, which has been like a long thing, which is like, how do you merge that? And one of the terrible ideas they had was the audience award where The Flash entering the Speed Force won the award for best movie moment of the year or some shit like that during some kind of commercial break. But
I'm just glad they didn't give anybody an Oscar for that. That's what I was worried about.
Yeah, like an honorary Oscar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool thing. And I think it's great to have this. I think it's great to have casting. It's long overdue. Stunt performing is like an amazing thing. And, you know, I was kind of thinking too, in addition to just like thoughts on this, like what else is missing. And I don't necessarily know that like, Kiko, you had once floated, and I'll let you talk about it, like the idea of like voice acting. But, you know, one thing that I think has been missing has been like voice acting / motion capture in Oscars recently. And I don't know that there needs to be a category for it, but one thing I was thinking about, I think would be great, would be more recognition for motion capture performances. There was a pretty big movement of it amongst critic groups years ago to have Andy Serkis nominated for the what was this? It was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the second.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah, definitely.
The second Matt Reeves movie, where or it was the first. Well, no, Rise was the first one. This was Dawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it would have been Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is the first one that Matt Reeves took over, where there's like a performance in there from Andy Serkis as Caesar that is just fucking amazing. And I think there was a lot of movement to try to get him a supporting actor nod. And I wish, you know, there's especially with the proliferation of these Avatar movies where these are like real life performances being brought to life. Like maybe a little bit more movement to maybe have some of those in the acting categories. But aside from that, again, I think things are moving in an interesting direction. But we'll get some thoughts here. Kiko, any thoughts about, you know, the stunt category, the casting category, anything else you think should be added?
I'm maybe this sounds bad, but I'm just worried how this is going to affect my my handicap in our in our prediction game that we play each year. We're gonna have to guess what now 25 in the next 3 years. No, but to be serious, I think that stunt performers are long overdue, as well as casting. I would definitely like to see some voiceover work, especially I think from Toy Story days, the first Toy Story, when was that, 95? I think from then on out, I think it's become, you know, really something that, you know, people have really been serious about in terms of casting the correct people. It's not just about, you know, the big stars anymore these days. Hopefully not. I don't know. But I think that when it comes to this, let's go back to the stunt real quick. The stunting, I'm interested to see like who gets the nomination. Is it going to be the stunt choreography or the stunt coordinator?
Right.
Would somebody that just takes over like could Tom Cruise be nominated for it since he does his own stunts? I mean, who's going to be the one
he
that
should be there?
Right. So I'm thinking like it's probably going to they're probably going to go up as high as maybe 3 or 4 nominations per film if that's possible. But you know, when it comes to Oscars, they're always evolving, right? In the past almost 100 years, I mean, they have some categories that are no longer there that were there, you know, 80 years ago, and now, you know, they took away, you know, they combined sound mixing and sound editing, which I have no idea what the difference is. I don't think anybody did watching. They just know, you know, if it sounds good or not. So I'm interested to see how all of this plays out. I mean, who knows? From, you know, 10 years from now, maybe they decide that, you know, casting, you know, isn't something that they need to honor anymore. I think it is. So we'll have to see how the few years that come ahead are gonna work out for everything. So.
My thought is that the casting award becomes sort of like the de facto ensemble acting award, basically, right? It's like the idea of like the best ensemble cast of a movie is probably as a result of casting, right? So like
in SAG, it's going to be the big award for SAG, right?
What I'm saying is like whatever wins like best cast, ensemble cast in SAG is the front runner for casting director or whatever, I think, in the future. But that's just how I think. But
yeah, so I think it's going to be it's kind of interesting that it's going to actually go to the casting director probably though, right? I mean, it's not
probably
gonna go to the
yeah.
cast, So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I know a couple of casting directors that are very happy about this. Because they do put a lot of work into it. I think I would have loved to have been a casting director. I think that out of all the movie
because
jobs
of the
out
couches,
there,
yeah, of course, Kiko,
yeah definitely
the casting couch.
that kind of casting, but something along the lines of it.
I think it's kind of funny that they're doing this now because I feel like movies are heading in a direction where they're getting away from like people who are stuntmen and like doing things in real life. So it's just kind of funny.
Mean versus like CGI stuff?
Yeah, and I feel like, man, this would have been really cool,
in the 70s?
Yes, from like now and previously in the 70s specifically. I mean, I'm just thinking of like, God, first off the top of my head is like the French Connection and that driving scene, which was just insane because it was all real compared to what they do now, which is all CGI. And so it just seems a little like too late. In my opinion. But who knows? I mean, I'm sure that they still do a ton of stuff, even when it's CGI related. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of interesting because the technology seems to almost be making this like not also needed.
Yeah, definitely.
Sense,
It's also crazy that, wasn't it just a few years ago where they're trying to figure out a way to get more people to watch the ceremony by
for sure.
honoring people during the commercials. So they're trying to find ways to like get rid of categories, and now they're just adding a couple more.
Yeah.
And then the 10 best movies was also like, to include more of those blockbusters.
It was, and as was the idea here of like the eliminating the songs performances is to make the broadcast more lean. But again, you had that sort of like what was it? I think the Golden Globes added the blockbuster movie category or best performance achievement in, box office or whatever.
Right.
And
yes, which Wicked won this year.
Yeah, they're trying to get more people interested in there. And like, I think if you're going to do that, you may as well highlight a category. If you're going to do that, you highlight a category which you can honor a blockbuster movie in a way that like feels like has artistic merit to it. Like these, like a stunt coordination thing, which like is a real like art, and I think that it kind of sucks for someone like Tom Cruise whose apparently Mission Impossible movie, this is the last one and Final Reckoning, and he's gonna miss out 1 year before they start adding the stunt.
And he's
category.
Literally been hanging off of helicopters for the last 40 years.
But yeah, I mean, I think if you in the future we can see maybe some of these MTV awards like Best Kiss get added to the Oscars. I think.
Oh my God! Yeah, right. That's hilarious. Yeah, when it comes to the Oscars, I've always been about like the work, and so when they show the actual performance in like a clip and then show the nominees. I love that. I love that when they bring in the actual movies into the movie award show, right? So I would love to see them get away from some of the more extra stuff that they don't need. Like that one year that they did, like, this is the 17th anniversary of White Man Can't Jump. Let's bring out Rosie Perez and Woody Harrelson. Like, I love that movie, but come on.
You didn't like the James Bond tribute for no fucking reason this year?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Where
Stuff
they had
like
people not even doing their own
Yeah.
Bond themes.
So what I'm saying is when the stunt thing comes out, I want actual stunts performed on stage.
Oh, okay.
Let them vote in real time of what the better stunt is, falling from the ceiling or whatever. But
there was this famous thing that happened. I wasn't there, but at South by Southwest several years back, they premiered the Raid 2 at South by Southwest, and apparently the print was all fucked up. And they had the stunt team from the Raid 2 come out and do like a stunt demonstration on stage to kill time. It's a very famous South by Southwest screening where they just did like stunt coordination and fight scenes and stuff to kill time while the print wasn't working.
That's funny.
And then I know for the Fall Guy, I think some guy like jumped off the
Right.
side of the at the
Which
Paramount in Austin.
That was, I think, better than the movie. Like
Probably, yeah.
all of the live stunts that they did leading up to promote it were like way better than the actual movie. But
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think it'll be cool. I mean, I think again, like it's long overdue. These people, who are putting their bodies and lives on the line deserve to be recognized. And I think
with a trophy. I'm just kidding.
well, yes, but also by, support from their peers and all that good stuff. But I mean, I think it is. I mean, I think whatever you can do with the Oscars to make it feel less old and stuffy, including adding these categories, I think that people are interested in, like casting, like stunt performance, maybe eventually voiceover, and like I said before, recognizing, motion capture performances, things that really show that you're not old fuddy-duddies who are just, living in the past. So I'm excited to see what happens, and I think maybe something like John Wick 5 might be, in the pipeline that year, and may be the first winner of that, but we'll see.
I'm looking forward. Go ahead. Sorry, Jocelyn.
No, just the ballerina movie.
No?
Oh yeah,
It's not going to be ready in time.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I'm anticipating the ballerina movie because I'm thinking about watching all the John Wicks before I see ballerina.
Kiko's never seen a John Wick. That's right.
Really?
I have not seen one. That's my what is it called when you have a blind spot in movies?
Yeah.
John Wick is my blind spot.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of the John Wick movies.
They're great. I mean, they're a lot of fun. Yeah. I came to them kind of later than I expected because I had heard, that they're just a good time, and they really are. And Keanu, I mean, who you can't help but love Keanu.
Yeah. I actually think that the John Wick movies get better as they go along. I actually think the first one is maybe my least favorite of the
I was
four.
worried because I knew that the inciting thing that happens is the death of an animal, and so that's what made me I was so nervous. And then it's not bad, and it's just awesome. And revenge movies are always just incredible.
We got one coming up here today.
Oh
yeah, there you go. So
yeah, true. You're
take
right.
That back in
I was
a little bit.
yeah, revenge movies. I feel like that's a long list of great. That's all you need is just someone trying to get back at someone, and it's an excellent movie.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, anything else to add on the topic of our Oscar discussion for today?
No, unless you want to throw yourself back and let's see how good of a stuntman you are, then we can.
Yeah, do it right now.
No, I have been watching, as I've been talking to Jocelyn about, and we talked about beforehand, The Pit, and I don't feel like getting a real life experience of that here tonight, going to the emergency room. Okay. So
I will add, Cannes came out with their list for films submissions or that are going to be screening. So that's the only other, I think, movie news that's big on
they did announce the in competition for the Palme d'Or.
You want me to get Gaetan to come down?
Yeah, get your husband to help me with that pronunciation here. There's a Linklater movie in there. That's
the Anderson one.
Yeah,
the one I'm most excited about is it's a Spike Lee Kurosawa movie.
Oh, okay. Is that in competition though?
No, I think it's just premiering.
Okay.
But
speaking of that Wes Anderson movie, how has Michael Cera not ever been cast
in? That is an excellent question. He's perfect for an
he
Anderson
looks exactly
movie.
Yeah, like the poster child of every single.
Literally, he is a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, you could play Wes Anderson in his life story.
Maybe he is.
There's
movie.
In competition, there's a Wes Anderson movie, there's a new Ari Aster movie. There is a movie from Linklater. There's a movie from Kelly Reichardt in there. There's a movie by Joachim Trier, who directed, I think, Worst Person in the World. Is that right? He did Kiko, a movie that I told you about, I think, in one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years, which is Oslo, August 31st.
Right, yeah, he did Worst Person in the World.
Yeah.
And, I remember you telling me about that.
I gotta look that one up.
Oof. It's a remake of Jocelyn. You actually may have seen this one.
I honestly, it sounds
so
familiar.
Oslo, August 31st is a remake of the Fire Within, the Louis Malle movie.
Okay.
Who is French.
Shut up.
And so if you haven't seen it, your Francophile card is removed. And your husband's, I'm sorry, your
Yes, I
marriage
have
is probably
seen
doomed.
Oslo, August 31st. Yeah.
Going back to,
Yes.
of course, Wes Anderson, because they say that that's where Wes Anderson got a lot of his influences from what's his name, Louis Malle is how you pronounce his first.
Interesting.
So
Yeah. Well, there you go. And so, and there's a new movie too from. I'm gonna look up before
I'm excited for it. I was pretty happy with the lineup.
There's also another French movie. I'm not gonna say her name because I'm gonna say it incorrectly, but it is the director who made Raw, the movie Raw.
Oh, right,
and
the one
Titan.
with the cannibal movie.
Yeah,
Shit, yeah.
It's Julie Ducournau.
Close enough.
Who is also
job.
French. She has a movie in competition at Cannes. Yeah.
Den Brothers. Yeah, there's a lot. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I would love to go to Cannes.
Yeah. It would be awesome.
That's what I wanted to do for my 40th birthday, but
Oh yeah. When does that
cards
happen?
aren't. That's this in June.
Oh, in June. Okay.
Yeah.
What day in June is your birthday?
June 11th.
Nice. I'll have to remember.
I'm
July 2nd,
yeah.
and Cody's
Yeah.
July 3rd.
Yeah, Kiko and I have a birthday a day apart.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Cody's a 4th of July baby.
almost.
Oh, that's right. Day before.
Yeah, and then Kiko is even more almost than that. All right.
I used to have a calendar, a Pee Wee Herman calendar that I always will remember that there's each date says something interesting, right? And mine, I will always remember that July 2nd is the exact middle of the entire year.
Interesting. I
Oh.
love those little facts.
Yeah.
What about in a leap year, though?
See how you crush 7-year-old baby Kiko's
Burst
soul.
his little bubble.
Yeah.
That's my job here.
That's what Cody does.
All right. Well, with that being said, why don't we talk about some movies?
Here are this week's reviews.
All right, so first up for this week, we have The Amateur. The Amateur is directed by James Hawes and stars Rami Malek, Rachel Brosnahan, Michael Stuhlbarg, Lawrence Fishburne. Also has some smaller roles from Holt McElhaney, Julian Nicholson, and someone else I'm forgetting here. John Bernthal is the other big one. So this movie is basically sort of like a spy revenge kind of vigilante thriller, I guess you could call it, about a guy who serves as like a decoder for the CIA and ends up in a situation where his wife is kidnapped and killed on a business trip in London, and he decides that he wants to seek revenge on those who have killed his wife and tries to go to the CIA to hunt the people down who are responsible. And that's about like the extent of it in terms of general plot. And so the way that I kind of describe this to Kiko, so I was the first one out of the bunch to see it, and I described this to Kiko as like Diet Born, where this is sort of like, it has the sort of like Bourne spy thriller idea and look and feel, but you're talking about a guy with like kind of no skills. You're talking about sort of like a guy who is, I guess if we're just calling it what it is, kind of like a computer nerd, and doesn't really have the sort of like special ops training or anything like that. And
He's never traveled internationally.
Never traveled internationally like myself. And
you too could be a spy one day.
I mean, I'm open to it.
That'd be good. I'd like to see that movie. It's funny because I didn't even know Rachel Brosnahan was in this movie until you just said it right now.
Oh, really?
Because she has really black hair in this, and so as I was watching it, I kept on thinking that that looks a lot like Evan Rachel Wood, who really does look like
Yeah, they
Rachel
do look
Brosnahan.
alike.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of funny. Anyway.
Yeah, and so this is basically, again, like I said, it's based on a novel, and it is sort of like this sort of like spy thriller where you have this guy who the whole thing about the entire movie is that he like couldn't harm a fly or whatever, and he gets so wrapped up within his revenge that he wants to be trained by the CIA, and the CIA ends up being kind of threatened by him because he is so good at his job that he sort of like gathered this sort of almost like blackmailish type of information on a lot of the higher ups within the CIA, and then ends up kind of going rogue and everything. And yeah, I mean, I think as far as this movie is concerned, I believe that it feels very generic in a lot of different ways. It feels very rote in its storytelling. It doesn't have the sort of like excitement of a Bourne movie where there is sort of like the hand-to-hand comment or the ass kicking that happens from a really trained person, where, part of the plot line of this movie is that he gets trained and is in over his head, but is like, like really good at explosives and stuff like that. So you do get like the more tactical elements of it, or the kind of brainiac side of it. But I don't know that it ever leads to being as exciting as its sort of like thriller, plotline indicates that it might be. I think that it is never, for me personally, it was never boring watching all of these things play out. I think that it does a decent enough job keeping you engaged. It is a little bit long. It is 2 hours long, which is sort of, again, the symptom of the modern, the modern movie, no matter what it is. Rami Malek, I think, is kind of doing the same thing in every movie, and I feel like this is really I mean, I guess technically he's got like fake teeth and stuff in Bohemian Rhapsody, so he's not doing the same thing there. But, aside from that, he plays this sort of like, kind of like weird, socially awkward guy, sort of prototype in a lot of the stuff he does, and this is no different. I wish that this movie had a little bit more excitement to it beyond its sort of like initial revenge thing. And I think one of the problems that the movie has is that it gets really wrapped up in some like B plot lines that are kind of silly. One of the plot lines it gets stuck in, I think a lot of the times is, you have this storyline where his character basically uncovers a CIA cover-up really early on in the movie. This is not a spoiler. This happens very early on. And then you kind of see the sort of like CIA headed like his boss kind of headed by Holt McElhaney, who I think is a great actor and I think is good in this, like involve this like organization-wide cover-up where he like gets the entire sort of weight behind the CIA behind like tracking down this guy, and he's a threat, and including Lawrence Fishburne in it, and it's all for this cover up. But then you have this CIA director played by Julianne Nicholson, who is like the scrappy person who's like seeking out this rogue thing, even though she's the director. It just feels backwards and weird. I don't really think that storyline connects at all. It gets really in the weeds of sort of like this, not only the cover up, but kind of like the lengths that he's going through. I don't think that the thing ever sort of like goes past a simmer at any point for me personally. I do think that towards the end of the movie, as it sort of starts to resolve a little bit, there is one saving grace here towards the end, which is the guy who I think is like the king of like dropping in a movie and making it instantly compelling, which is Michael Stuhlbarg. Who is like this incredible character actor who can make anything great. And I think in this movie for like 5 minutes, and that's it, makes this movie compelling for a little bit of time, delivers a really interesting monologue about, the whole thing about, this character is that like, yes, he's driven by hate and revenge and all this stuff, but like, can he kill? Like, is he capable of killing people and getting that revenge? And Stuhlbarg delivers this great monologue behind it. He plays a character that like you literally do not see until an hour and 45 minutes into this movie, and for like 3 minutes he's the most captivating thing about the entire movie, which just speaks to him. He's done it so many times. He's Call Me by Your Name, Bones and All, Seven Psychopaths. This guy rules. He's such a good actor, and I love anytime he shows up. But yeah, I mean, I think this is just kind of rote, standard, by the numbers, kind of like spy thriller kind of thing, which never really, again, like goes past a simmer, because you're dealing with sort of like this, like the whole, point, the movie's called The Amateur. The idea is that this guy doesn't have any kind of special training skills. He doesn't really know what he's doing, yet he's really tactical and stuff like that. And, I don't really ever get this idea that this guy is totally, I don't buy into the idea that he's so driven by revenge that he's willing to go to these lengths. And it never feels really authentic to me. That being said, like I said, I don't think it's ever boring. I don't think that it's ever really poorly made. I just think that some of the logic starts to fall apart. I think it gets a little silly. along the way, and I don't know that it ever really connects. But Kiko, what were your thoughts on The Amateur?
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you on pronounce his name again, Stonebarg, right?
Stuhlbarg.
Stuhlbarg. Yeah, he's great in the last 10 minutes of it. I really enjoyed him in all the films that you mentioned before. But so for The Amateur, for me, the only real positive or the big positive thing for me is that maybe it created a new entertainment genre for me. And I know I'm being facetious when I say this, but the action sitcom, because of just the setup of it is just so ridiculous. Like the wife dies and he comes to his boss is like, make me a killer. And it's almost like it's like this setup for like this weird 1980s TV series like MacGyver or Magnum PI or something like that. The only thing is those shows, I mean, they did a sort of like a wink of an eye with those kind of things, and here they're being way too serious. They're trying to turn Rami Malek into some, Bruce Willis with a brain or something like that. So all of the CIA FBI stuff, it kept on reminding me of the Coen brothers Burn After Reading, because it was like kind of like real funny, but it was not trying to be funny. So like just the way that all the FBI and those guys were kind of just like not really in the know or always got it wrong all the time and just were kind of just on the outside looking in and weren't in part of the story. It just reminded me a lot of that. So I'm not a fan of the big problem with me in this movie. I'm not a big fan of action movies that reveal things to audiences on computer screens all the time. And you see this happen in libraries too, where you go to a library to try to, they pull a book out and reveal all the answers that they were looking for. So I think a movie like this, it did this to the maximum degree, when it came to the technology that Rami Malek's character has at his fingertips. Like, everything that he needs to know is right there, whether it's, on a program that he has or on a hidden camera that's somewhere on a street, somewhere in the world. He just has it at the tips of his fingers. And that's just such a lazy script, a lazy way to get past things. So there's no real stakes because the internet's always there for him. He gets all the answers that he needs to move to his next mission. So I didn't like any of that at all. I do like Rami Malek a lot. I'm a big defender of his Oscar win for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Ooh.
I've never
seen
in
this house.
Yeah, no, really. So I've never seen Mr. Robot, but I'm assuming that he plays the same type of nerdy computer guy.
100%,
So
yeah.
So I think he has a lot of charisma. He has his look. I love his look. He looks different than most leading men, right, in Hollywood. So I just think the Amateur is just entirely too generic for him. So he could find something that's a lot more meatier, and just like the little things like you talked about how this isn't like a combat fight, a face-to-face, combat-to-combat style, and it's because he's using his brain more than his fists. The problem with that is they never show us like how he gets to that point where it just happens, right? Like there's
he kind of leaves early. He leaves spy school early.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, he gets trained.
He doesn't even finish.
He gets trained in one day, and he took his 101 class and got in and out of there, right? But like if they had shown like maybe a little bit about how he managed to make these things happen and to get his revenge, or how he set it up a little bit, but no, when he gets there, it happens. Somehow it all happened, behind closed doors or whatever you want to say, but it just happens and he moves on to the next mission. And that's just was too, I couldn't buy any of that. So that's where I am right now with the Amateur.
Yeah. Okay. Jocelyn, your thoughts on The Amateur?
Yeah. I'm going to say, so I really started off enjoying this movie. I think, seeing Rami doing his old Mr. Robot, like computer genius stuff is great. And I think his performance is, it's always him. Like, I think what Cody was saying, he's sort of just himself again, but it's done really well. And he's an incredible actor. Like, there's really subtle things that he's doing, even just about like when he's learning about his wife and when he's with Holt. I really also love Holt McElhaney from Mindhunter. And I was happy to see him there and those two going on. And I was just liking the ride until we got into the spy school stuff, just like what Kiko was saying. It seemed a little like sitcom-y. It was like literally like first day of spy school. Like he has a little backpack and he's waiting for the, bus, basically. It's so silly. But once he leaves spy school early, like we said, he kind of goes off on this journey. And it was actually, I think, enjoyable. And yeah, just leading to the final boss, which was the character actor that Cody loves. That just,
Stuhlbarg.
I mean, it's incredible. It really pays off, I feel like. But my biggest complaint, and Cody knows this already, is it just doesn't have any balls, and I think that's because it's PG-13. I wish this movie had been an R, and I feel like it would have been great. It would have been a lot more ballsy than it was, because I feel like they're just playing it safe the whole time, and it seems almost like a Disney version of a spy movie. Like, it doesn't have any of the grittiness, any of the like real, sex, drugs, and rock and roll that a good spy movie needs. Otherwise, it's just like kind of silly. And
yeah, it is very silly. That's a perfect word for it. But you want to see when he blew up that guy, you wanted to see an arm fly out, right?
Thank you. I literally, it wasn't when he blew him up. It was when the pool fell and the glass was everywhere. And I'm like, really? There's not a drop of blood in the water, like some guts? Like it would. That was literally the moment where I was just like, what is happening? Like, this is such bullshit.
Yeah, it's very tame.
It's not gritty at all, and it really needs to be. Otherwise, it would have been an excellent movie. And I'm actually surprised that all these people signed on to do this kind of like it's like what's it called, like a like a antiseptic, when they like remove all of the stuff like that. It's like a I don't know, like a pared down version of it, and you can just tell it's been. What's the word I'm looking for?
Sanitized?
Sanitized, thank you. It's like a sanitized spy movie. And it's like, boo to that. Because, man, it had everything going for it. Especially the final boss. Like, man, it could have been really good.
You know what, like, is... I don't think I've ever talked to you, Kiko, about this movie. But, like, there's a movie that I think has, like, a really low, like, Rotten Tomatoes rating, which I think is interesting and weird. Which is Man on Fire, the Denzel Washington. I think it was Tony Scott, right?
Yeah.
That movie is at 38% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Isn't
which
that
is
like
a
Dakota
Fanning?
Yeah, Dakota Fanning plays
a
little Latina girl.
Yeah.
Mark Anthony's daughter, yes.
Yeah, Mark Anthony's daughter.
Forgot about that
So,
part.
but that is like a revenge movie that always sticks in my mind, because I mean, I was also younger when I saw it, but there's like a scene where like he's interrogating a guy, and he literally is like cutting off his fingers and then cauterizing it with a cigarette burner. And like he's cutting off finger by finger and then like that is what I want from my revenge movie. And I think to Jocelyn's point, like, this guy is sort of like sheepishly blowing people up and stuff like that, and I just don't know
like
that
accidentally.
Yeah. And I just don't really know. Like I said, I mean, I think you have to believe that this guy is so driven by his revenge that he's willing to do these things and wants to kill, but it never feels believable. And I think that's the problem with it, is that even when it's trying to sell you on this idea, even though he is like technically killing these people, it's very sort of like at a distance and hands off. It actually and again, I think that the scene with Michael Stuhlbarg is probably the best scene in the movie, and even then it doesn't really like track, because Michael Stuhlbarg's reaction does not really fit the moment. I think in that moment, and I think it feels very unearned. It's just driven by the idea that you've got this amazing actor like really selling it. And he has like a great monologue that leads up to that, but that moment, even though it's the best in the movie, just doesn't really track. I don't think entirely.
Yeah, you're right. I think it doesn't really fit into the momentum that we're heading towards.
Yeah. Especially because the idea is that Rami Malek at that point feels dangerous and scary to that character. And I don't think at any point during the movie does it actually build him up to be so.
Right. We didn't talk about Lawrence Fishburne's character in here as well, which I just don't feel like it needed it. The film didn't need it at all. I think he was wasted. He's just kind of like is following Rami Malek through this whole thing, and then pops up, I don't know, like a magician.
Well,
everywhere he goes.
And this movie suffers from that thing where it introduces characters that are off screen for a long time. You see John Bernthal at the very beginning. He doesn't pop up until a while. You see, Lawrence Fishburne early on in the movie. He doesn't pop up again until much later. And again, like I said, there's this dumb story that's building within about this sort of like CIA cover-up that all of these people, including Lawrence Fishburne, are part of, and including John Bernthal are part of, that just sort of like crumbles because of this like rugged CIA director. Like none of it, like it's just such a stupid thing where like
they
all of
didn't
this
need
is happening
any of
under the
that.
director's nose. It's not
Right.
reversed, and it's like the director is, I don't know. Anyway, the director is not the corrupt person. It's the people below her. I don't know. It's none of that works. But anyway, let's get into final thoughts. I mean, again, I don't want to like trash this movie in a way that I feel like it's unwatchable, because I don't think that it is. I think that it is a watchable spy thriller revenge movie. I think Rami Malek is, I mean, like, look, if you've seen him in Mr. Robot, if you've seen him in this sort of like awkward role that he's has sort of like found himself into, he's sort of playing that card and he's playing it perfectly fine. Even though the sub characters aren't great in it, I like John Bernthal as an actor. I like Lawrence Fishburne. Michael Stuhlbarg's great. The supporting Holt McElhaney is great and always great in this stuff. Like, it's got good supporting characters, but the script fails it. The intrigue fails it. This is sort of like this idea of like this spy thriller, but a guy who like can't fight or doesn't do any hand-to-hand combat, and it's all sort of like in his head and tactical. And for me, it just doesn't ever really, again, like go beyond the sort of simmering point. It doesn't ever boil over. It doesn't become exciting. It doesn't become all that interesting. So for me, it falls short of being able to recommend it. I give it a C+. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I like Rami Malek a lot. As you can see, I'm sporting him with the Master shirt, which he was great in. I love him in Short Term 12. I love his little part in Barbenheimer. Oppenheimer, sorry.
He's a Bond villain?
Yeah, well, he's a Bond villain too. So I think that he just needs better work. He has a lot of charisma. I think that as a leading man, he could just find a better script. This isn't it, of course. The narrative is just ridiculous. Like I said before, it just felt like an action sitcom from the 80s. Just things that are happening way too easy for the lead actor to continue on to the next mission for him to go on. And I just didn't find any of it believable in terms of, I mean, of course, as a spy movie, a lot of it's going to be unbelievable, but it went a little bit too far for me. So I'm giving this a solid C.
All right. And Jocelyn, your final thoughts and grade.
Yep. I think I just don't want to see a sanitized spy movie is the thing I'm going to put on my tombstone, because I wanted it to be more Death Wish. Like, revenge movies can be so fun when the person's like angry and not letting anything, stop him. And there's elements of that, but I feel like they still didn't want him to make him like seem bad or unlikable somehow. So everything he does is just kind of accidental or unintentional, and it just seems almost silly. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a B- though, because I still enjoyed it. I just wish it had been a little better.
Yeah. All right. So we're kind of like stepping here. We got B-, C+, C. Kiko, you gave it a C, right? So yeah. So let's go ahead and move on.
Not too
here.
far. We really have to start fighting. These grades are way too close to each other. I'm serious.
Yeah. Well, when Jocelyn gives something an A+ at some point, and you and I haven't given an A+ in a decade, that'll be something we argue about.
And it's something that I like criticize when I speak the entire time.
Oh, that's my favorite Jocelynism here. If we can just say that, is that Jocelyn like trashes a movie and she's like A+.
A+. Yeah. I reserve those for the ones that I really care about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next movie called Drop. So Drop is a film directed by Christopher Landon, who you may know previously from directed Happy Death Day and its sequel. He also directed Freaky, the movie with Vince Vaughn. I believe that he was also supposed to direct the newest Scream movie before everything sort of like went to shit there with Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega dropping out. He was supposed to, well, I guess I should properly say that, and Barrera was fired from the movie and Ortega subsequently dropped out. Unfairly and unjustly fired, by the way. So Drop has basically a super simple premise, which is a movie about a widowed mom who decides to go on her first date in a long time, and during this date receives threatening airdrop messages while she's in this restaurant. Basically, her her son is in danger during this time, and if she doesn't follow very specific instructions, which if you've seen the trailer includes killing her date, her son is at risk, and that is it. Okay. So let's talk about Drop, right? So the first thing I will talk about Drop for me is, I think, talking a little bit about its visual style, which is that this movie runs into this issue where a good portion of not only the story, but the tension within the story is happening on a phone screen. And, through the years, through the proliferation of smartphones, movies have shown different ways of displaying text messages and stuff like that through, different visual language. This is a movie where I think I admire its effort for conveying its visual language of a phone. I don't like any of it. I don't like the display of the text messages like on the walls of the restaurant, or the idea that when she's like sitting in a stall, she sees all the pictures and stuff around her. This movie does a job of showing the text messages in different ways that I feel like are invasive and I feel like don't really suit the story at all. And so right off the bat, I'm not a huge fan of the visual language of this movie. Beyond that, this is a movie that basically is a sort of like mystery movie where anyone inside this restaurant could be a suspect, and it's basically her trying to suss this out. And it's supposed to be this sort of like powder keg experience where, it's sort of like, I guess, like akin to like a phone booth, the movie Phone Booth, where, she's trapped in a certain situation. She has someone who's
the cleaner.
Yeah, just move. Oh, yes.
I brought up the Phone Booth to my wife about this movie. I was just laughing because we don't have phone booths anymore, so it made me feel.
By the way,
but we have window washers.
We do. When Phone Booth came out, again, I was like 18 when Phone Booth came out. I fucking love that movie.
It's a great movie. Yeah, it's very underrated. Yeah.
It's a super like tense thriller that is like you're on the edge of your seat, and like it's all based on like Kiefer Sutherland's crazy ass voice that is super scary, and Colin Farrell is great in it. Yeah, that's a really underrated movie, and this is what basically a version of that type of movie, right? Where it's this sort of like person who is in a trap situation who has to follow a very specific set of instructions, or else everything and everyone is going to die as part of it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that the movie never really gets past the ridiculousness, I think, of its setup, where, there's so much, I think, personal disconnect that happens between it, where, she is watching her son, on her phone, like through cameras, but like they only cut in every like 20 minutes to show what's going on in that house. And so it doesn't it doesn't ever really feel like a threat because they're only checking in like every so often.
The masked man is babysitting her child. Basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly.
It's like she got a free babysitter.
Yeah. The way that it sort of plays, it's who is the suspect kind of thing, feels super cheap because I think it goes for like the cheap, like trying to make it super obvious, but then obviously trying to misdirect you kind of thing, and that kind of sort of thing. And I think that the problem, I think, that lies within all of it is that it is a movie that builds for like an hour all towards a reveal. The whole first hour of the movie is just having the audience think, I wonder who this person is. And then like, an hour and 10, hour 15, whatever into the movie, you finally get the reveal, and it's so fucking underwhelming. The reveal of this movie and actually what's going on is so underwhelming. It's so dumb. It's just it's like a gut punch of disappointment to kind of have this final reveal of what's going on. Like not only is like the antagonist of this movie interesting of it, but the way that this antagonist is sort of confronted is so stupid. It's just the dumbest thing. And so you have this thing where it's like, and I get if this is sort of like a parable or a movie about like how people are too in their phones and not like looking at things. And so you have this character who's on this first date, but she's like constantly in her phone. She's trying to be engaged by this date, and she's like on her phone, which, by the way, I think the whole thing of like trying to play her date as like a mysterious person too, I think again is this convoluted story of like this movie has just so many red herrings in sort of like misdirects that I feel aren't worth it at all. And so I think that the tension of it playing out, like I guess you could say that the execution of the tension is like moderately successful, but I again it's all building towards the reveal. You're just sort of waiting for an hour to figure out who this person is and why they're doing what they're doing, and when you finally get to it, it's just really not worth the journey at all. I think the other thing that really stands out to me about this movie that I'll say is that, I mean, I think there's a version of this type of movie that has its sort of like dumb fun elements to it, where you can kind of laugh along with the movie, or you can say, "Oh, this is silly," but it's like a wish fulfillment, sort of like seeing someone get their comeuppance kind of thing. This movie is wrapped up in this sort of like secondary plot line about our main character here, played by Megan Fahey, which I think, again, I don't think Megan Fahey is bad in this movie. I don't think that Brandon Sklenar in the supporting role is bad either. But this movie is really wrapped up with this character being a survivor of domestic violence. In several scenes,
I know. I almost laughed too, Kiko.
I didn't mean to laugh when you said that. Just
I
thinking
totally,
about,
But the
how
reason why
ridiculous it is. Yeah.
the reason why
I almost laughed too.
I think the
This is
reason why
just so
both of you are
ridiculous.
having this response is that the story in this movie is like dark as fuck. Like
Right.
the story that you see here is super dark. Like her background and stuff is like really, really intense. And it doesn't fit the movie at all, because you can't have fun with this movie because it's so weighed down with this like domestic violence story that is like kind of gross and kind of to me it feels a little bit like exploitive. Like it just doesn't feel like this movie earns that type of story or does anything for victim advocacy, I guess I should say. And it's like so weighed down by the seriousness of this character's backstory that when you try to have fun with it, I don't think it works on that level either. So I don't buy into the sort of like corniness B movie part of this. I think that I think it's just sort of like a waste of time in many different ways. And again, I just feel like with a lot of it, it doesn't really earn its payoff, which I think is really stupid. I feel like the script is bad. I think it tries to build some humor in some side characters, including a really annoying waiter character. Its domestic violence story feels really shoehorned. And I feel like it's just, again, like this long, like semblance of tension buildup that doesn't lead anywhere. And once we get the reveal, I found myself really annoyed with the amount of time it took to get there and the payoff of it. So I'll turn over to Jocelyn and get your thoughts on Drop.
Oh, thank you so much. I love talking about movies like this that I just hated. Because I think even before I saw the movie, the premise it seems so ridiculous as far as like, oh, they're going to kill her kid. It's like Cody said, exploitive. It's like, oh, the worst thing ever. Like go. How, like, there's no subtlety, there's no nuance to that. It's just literally like, okay, the worst thing that could happen to her as a single mom on this date. Okay, great. Not interested in that at all. And then once you actually learn, going to the actual like the violence that she has experienced, when you think about it, actually, that's super exploitive to then put her in this situation. This person who is a victim, and it's a fabricated story, so they could have made it anything, and it's actually kind of gross that they put this person who experienced this trauma into another traumatic experience in this dumb premise of a movie. So I'm actually getting quite mad about it now that I'm thinking about it. Not to, just mention that the misdirects that you were talking about and the red herrings are all very dumb and uninteresting. Like, I feel like all the exploitiveness aside, it could have been actually quite interesting if they had made the wrist directs like more of a puzzle, but they're not. There's no clues that are given other than like people who are on the phone while she's texting, so she can see like, oh, that person just got one. Like, there's nothing clever at all about these misdirects. I feel like if they had come up with some cleverness, it could have made up for all of the other awfulness of this movie. And then to say the actual, the payoff, like Cody was saying, like not only is it not interesting who it is, but then the way it's done is also not interesting. It's not done in a way that's clever or even stylized. Like there's other things in the movie that are stylized and they're kind of interesting, or they're a little captivating when it's happening, but I feel like that would have been the moment to do all of that because it's like the big payoff and it's just another missed opportunity. And I actually really like Megan Fahey. She was in White Lotus, and she was one of my favorite actresses from that season of White Lotus. And I really feel like they gave her nothing other than being like this sort of helpless person in this situation. Like I feel like they could have given her a lot more to do because she's an incredible actress and she could have done it. And instead, it's just this dumb movie. And then, of course, when when she has to go home, it just gets completely even more ridiculous. It just get worse. It got worse and worse as it was unfolding. And then I'm going to end this by saying the romance is so dumb. Like for them to fall in love afterwards, spoiler alert, I don't know. But like there's nothing in this movie that showed her and the person that she's on the date with like actually having any type of a like genuinely like romantic or like moment where they could possibly fall in love. So then it's like just it feels like such a like it comes out of nowhere for them to then like have this happy ending almost, which is just so dumb. And I don't want to give too much away, but like that's sort of they're sort of ending this on a happy ending moment, and they did nothing to set this movie up to be that. And I just think I really, really hated this movie.
Cody knows about that kind of stuff, though. Don't people fall in love when they're experienced
like trauma and
like
stuff?
trauma bonding?
But they don't go through anything together. That's exactly what I had been struggling with. Where I'm like, I think
Jocelyn, he's a hero.
In a better, what did he? No,
he could have left at any point during this date, but he feels something for her.
Which is
oh my god, that was
which is why Speed with Keanu Reeves and
thank
Sandra
you,
Bullock.
Kiko. Literally, I was like I was unloading the dishwasher the other day, and I was like, it's exactly why Speed works, because Sandra and Keanu, they went through something together. They worked together. You know what I mean? It's so funny you said that because I was literally in my head having an argument about why Speed is like the exact opposite of something like this, where they put the work in to show that it would lead to this anyway. But that's why Speed's great.
All right.
So funny. I'm glad you said that.
Kiko, your thoughts on Drop?
Yeah, I'll agree. I was so annoyed with this movie, and I'll disagree with both of you in saying that Megan Fahey is interesting in this because I didn't like her. I haven't seen White Lotus, of course, so I'm missing that part out. But I think it doesn't.
I did not say she was good. I said she's capable.
She's
of
capable
being
of it.
Good,
Okay.
But they didn't.
I said she was fine.
Anything to work.
Fair enough.
with.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't think it helps though that she looks exactly like another Megan, former Fox reporter Megan Kelly. So I think I was secretly hoping that she would fall off the top of the floor of that building before the credits rolled. Anyway, basically, she doesn't have any charisma or charm. I thought she was lifeless. And I want to say that I'm sorry, not sorry, but this is the example of like not hiring a big star to save on overhead, to be honest with you. I'm just going to throw that out there. But anyway, I do like the setting of the film, this high-rise restaurant, but they didn't really do anything with that. I was hoping, something was going to come out of that.
You mean palette? I kept saying
palette.
The palette. That's right. There you go.
Palette. Wow. Fancy. You were like, oh, what's this fancy restaurant called Palette?
I know it was palette, but it was like cracking me. I was so bored I was having to come up with like jokes myself.
So they do nothing with the setting. They could have been having dinner at Dave and Buster's, and it would have been the same movie. That's gonna be the next movie. Actually, it's gonna be like capture a stuffed animal in the claw machine or your kid's gonna die, right? Something like that, I think. So besides that, I think that it annoys me when there's so many plot holes and the lazy scripting is just preposterous. My favorite of the is at the start of the film where Fahey's character makes sure to, I don't know who she was talking to, but she makes sure to tell another character how close she lives to the restaurant so that at the end of the film, it doesn't seem as dumb as it really is. So like,
Totally
how long does it take?
illogical.
And yeah, spoiler alert, like it takes forever for this masked guy to get into the room of the little boy, but just enough time for the mommy to get from the top floor of this restaurant and drive 5 minutes back home right before he slaughters
From
everybody in the
downtown
house.
Chicago, by the
Right,
way.
exactly,
Like,
yeah.
She would have to have like $1 million home.
Yeah, $1 million home, no red lights.
From
Yeah,
the center
she
of
slid
No,
down
she
the
drives
banister.
through construction
Chicago.
dangerously. You guys miss this part of the
Oh,
movie?
there you go. I forgot about that part.
She ran through the thing.
So I just think, overall the film, it has a somewhat of an interesting concept, but it muddles it up with a lot of illogical, the setup, a lot of these ridiculous plot twists. I think a lot of people are enjoying it because they like the cheesiness of it, like if it's kind of self-aware, but I don't think it is. I'm not buying into that.
I agree.
I think that it
boring.
takes itself way too seriously.
Yeah.
And I'll just talk a little bit about the intense domestic violence storytelling. I mean, that's the reason that they target this woman, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, the main mission of this entire movie is to kill her date, right? And I won't get into why they want to kill him, but there just seems like there has to be an easier way for this to happen, right? There has to be an easier way to kill this guy than to go through this one
Yeah, this
woman,
entire
like
thing.
You're
You're right.
just make up this entire like big game to kill this guy through this woman because she experienced this awfulness in her life. So just totally unbelievable, and I did not like this movie at all.
Yeah. Well, let's get into final thoughts and grades then. Again, this movie is, like I said, one giant build-up powder keg to a payoff that is completely underwhelming and quite dumb and silly. It is something where it really relies upon the tension that never really feels like it's entirely there or earned. It uses a lot of visual language to show its use of technology that I feel like doesn't really work in its matter of execution. You have to really have a suspension of disbelief for this thing to even work to begin with, just from a very base level. I don't know that the relationship in it ever really feels like it's earned. I don't feel like any of these performances are bad per se, but I also don't feel like any of these performances are enough to, buoy the story to make it feel believable. And then I think the worst thing that it commits is that from the perspective of just being a dumb, silly horror movie, it is really weighed down by this very serious domestic violence plot that keeps it away from you being able to see it as dumb and silly, because so much of this character's background and what happens and why she's in this position to begin with is weighed down by this very, very serious thing that feels very at times carelessly used as a plot device when it is like a very real, intense thing, which I didn't love the usage of that and the execution of that. So for me, I just think this thing is dumb, silly, and bad. I give it a C-. Jocelyn, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, you have to suspend your belief way too much, like, to possibly take it anywhere seriously. And I guess I can see how people might be like, oh, this is just a fun, dumb movie to go to. But it's really, I think, really boring. I was bored a lot of the time. I just wasn't into the little hints that they were supposedly giving about the possible suspects because it just wasn't enough. There was just really, I feel like it was lazy and bad. Did you give your grade?
Yes, I gave it a C-.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm gonna do a solid D.
Whoa.
D.
Yeah.
All right.
I put D plus at the beginning, but I just really didn't like it, so D.
I love it. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, Fahey didn't do it for me as the lead actress in this. I thought it was a one-note thriller with a crazy dumb setup and plot twists that are way far from clever as it thinks it is. I thought it took itself way too seriously, especially when it pulls in this secondary background story of domestic violence with her. It just didn't work whatsoever. And no, I'll be totally honest with you. I didn't know who the person was that was sending these messages to her. So I was like, 10% surprised at the end, but it could have been like, the cook in the back that never showed up, and it would have been
It almost was. It was
Yeah.
someone that they really didn't. I mean, they didn't do any work to lead us to,
Right, exactly.
There was no clues in that direction, so it's like, what's the point?
So yeah, besides that, the lazy script and the plot holes, I'm giving this a C- as well.
All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and go to our final film of the episode here, Warfare. Warfare is a movie that is directed, or we'll say co-written and co-directed by Alex Garland, who everyone may know from his really fantastic movie Ex Machina, but also from movies like Annihilation, Men, from the show Devs. He also was a writer on 28 Days Later as well. And it is co-written and directed by a guy named Ray Mendoza, who is a veteran, a former U.S. Navy SEAL, and was in the Iraq War. And this movie is basically a retelling of an incident that happened to co-director and writer Ray Mendoza of when him and his platoon experienced something in the Iraq War in 2006. And the movie is made entirely from the memories and testimonies from the members of his platoon in a situation where essentially his platoon takes, I guess, shelter in a house in Iraq and ends up getting kind of like bogged down with gunfire and basically needs to be evacuated. And it's the story of his platoon trying to get evacuated in the middle of a war zone. So Kiko and I had a really interesting experience of watching this movie in IMAX in San Antonio here with Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland in attendance doing a Q&A in the theater where we were at. It was great. It's super cool. I love that we get stuff like this here. I wish we had more of it. I think the thing to kind of talk about here is and it's interesting to kind of talk about through the lens of its writing and direction, because you almost have like two different perspectives coming from this. You have the perspective of Ray Mendoza, which is the guy who lived this, and Ray Mendoza is a guy who was the sort of like stunt / war choreographer of the movie Civil War. I believe his role within the movie was the military supervisor. So at the very end of Civil War, there is like a big battle sequence where they invade the White House and a team like tactically invades the White House and goes through it. Ray Mendoza is the guy who choreographed all of that stuff from his experience. And so he's worked with Garland before, and you kind of have two looks at this movie, one of which is the experience of Mendoza and his platoon and his real-life story that went into this. And the other you have is the perspective of Garland as a writer and director who helped shepherd this project, but then also I think has kind of like some of the fingerprints of some of Garland's work in this film. So I'll start with the things that I think really work with this movie, is that this is a very visceral war movie. It's very intense. It's very loud. It's very brash. It's very violent. It feels very real. And part of, I think, what made Civil War, Garland's previous movie, so successful, or is successful in its own way, was stuff like sound design. Civil War is a very loud movie. It really, like, when the war stuff starts, you're really kind of in the thick of it. And this movie really viscerally puts you in a war zone. It does really interesting things with its sound, and like, when bombs go off, it does really interesting thing with like the sort of like ears ringing kind of thing. It doesn't hesitate to show you violence and limbs and all that stuff. And what it really feels like to me is like this really well done reenactment of what was a real thing, with a lot of like real people based on, real people that Ray Mendoza knew. And I feel like as a reenactment with historical accuracy, the movie really succeeds from a technical standpoint. Super intense. It feels authentic. You're really caught up in like the jargon and the monotony of it, where it's just like this regularly routine mission that goes haywire. I think it does a really good job of establishing that kind of thing. Where I think the movie gets into some sort of like wobbly territory is that I don't really know. I think like at the expense, I think the movie uses its accuracy and at the expense of a lot of narrative development and a lot of character development, where these people in the movie almost by design feel sort of like nameless and faceless. You know, you have a really interesting cast here. You have Will Poulter, you have guys like Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things, you have Charles Melton, you have Cosmo Jarvis from Shogun is in this movie, Michael Gandolfini is in it. You know, you have a lot of like really high level actors, but they all kind of like blend together to create this platoon. There's nothing characteristically interesting about almost any of these characters, and a lot of what they go through is very rote and very routine. You know, the first half hour of this movie, very little happens in the first half hour or so of Warfare. It's just very routine sort of stuff, and I feel like a lot of that is potentially by design to show the monotony of, you know, being in this type of position, but I don't really know that it makes for a super compelling or interesting movie, narratively speaking, especially when a lot of these characters are meant to be shown maybe like as a platoon and like how they fit together as a unit. But again, there's not a lot of character development that happens in there. There's not a lot of like memorable characters. And again, there's not really any kind of narrative that happens aside from like these people take over this house, they get attacked, they need to be moved out, and like that's it. That is the extent of the narrative parts of this. And I feel like that gets really shortchanged along the way. I think the other thing that is like an interesting component of this movie is something that kind of got brought up with Civil War, which is Garland's political stance as part of the movie. So, you know, there's been a lot of discourse with Warfare here about, you know, is it like an anti-war movie? There was also some discourse about whether or not, prior to it coming out, was it like like a pro-military movie? I think one thing we can say that is that it's not a like jingoistic sort of like I guess like romanticizing of the military. The whole point of this movie is to show you that it is a very brutal and ugly thing. The point of the movie is to show that war is hell, you know, like all of that stuff that's there. It doesn't romanticizing the military. So I think people can throw that out as like pro-military propaganda. I don't think it's that at all. What I start to wonder about is like if this movie is actually anti-war in the way that people say that it is. Because I think the main takeaway at most of this movie is the idea of like the notion of like the pointlessness of the Iraq War, which is a topic that has been sort of like talked about ad nauseum since it happened. But I think the idea that you have this platoon that's taking over this homestead of a family, and then they get caught up in the violence of it all, and you're kind of wondering like, well, what is this all for? Is like the extent of the messaging of the movie, though I don't know how overt it is. I feel like that's the takeaway, but I don't know how much of that is intended in the messaging of it all. And I think that was oftentimes when I heard stuff, and I think even on this podcast, what the complaints were about Civil War with Alex Garland, which is that in Civil War, it doesn't really take a political stance one way or another. It doesn't even really politicize it at all. It's very apolitical at times, where it sort of contextualizes it a little bit. I think the furthest it goes is it talks about the Antifa massacre, but it doesn't really say or imply what that really is or was or what it represents. And I think that this sort of like apolitical, or borderline apolitical stance of this movie is the thing that shines through. I don't know that I ever clock it or feel like it is a representation of an anti-war movie, or ever really has a message to say per se. And so without any kind of messaging or meaning behind it, and without any kind of characterization, and without any kind of narrative, this movie just feels like a very good and well-made and well-executed war reenactment that feels very authentic and real and lived in. But I don't know that it necessarily feels like a fully fledged movie in terms of its cinematic storytelling. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I land with it. Kiko, your thoughts on Warfare?
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with you on everything that you said. I won't get too much into the anti-war stuff. I was more interested in the fact that it was not American military cinematic propaganda, which is something that I really, really dislike when they make movies. And I guess people could argue back and forth whether or not certain movies like Black Hawk Down, Lone Survivor, American Sniper are those types of movies. in my opinion, I think they are, because they, like you mentioned before, romanticize parts of the combat. This does none of that, like, at all. This is not a piece. This is not a movie that you're going to show to a potential recruit to try to get them to join the military, which is exactly what I want to see in a war movie. They show the ugliness of it. They show how crippling it is to people. I mean, that's the part that I enjoyed. All the technical aspects of this film, top notch. All the sound. I know you brought up some of the bombs blasting, the gunfire going off. The one thing that you haven't mentioned yet, and I don't even remember the name of it, but it's the point where they're trying to get the Iraqis to kind of lose a little bit of
show of force.
The show of force. There's a couple of scenes of what they call the show of force, where they call in a fighter jet to come down as low as possible to the ground where they're standing and just fly through it, and it just like is almost like piercingly. It's just a piercing effect to the senses, where it just kind of like throws everybody back, and it gives them some time to move around or do something that they need to do, where everybody's kind of off kilter a little bit. Those scenes, those couple of scenes were just like, wow, I didn't realize, like, first of all, I love learning new things like that. I didn't know that they were able to do stuff like that. So I like all of that. I like all of the messiness, and I like everything that came technically speaking about the film. There's even little parts of it, like, where I was just like, wow, that would be something that would really happen. It's where, and I don't want to give too much away, but there's a couple of, after the IED goes off and a couple of the men really get hurt, they lose some limbs. And then another platoon comes in, another American platoon comes in later, and they're like, they're on the floor just in pain, right? They're just in so much pain, but there's just so much going on that some of the other soldiers aren't paying attention and like kick their legs on accident.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry. And some of them are like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. Like, there's just like little touches of like, of things like that where it just feels like so authentic to the entire story. Like, oh, we wouldn't even have like been looking to see where we're going to step, if we're going to step on these guys, like, protruding bones and things like that. So I thought all those little tiny things were pretty interesting to me when it came to those very high violent scenes of the movie. But yeah, I mean, one other thing I wanted to bring up before I get into the things that I didn't like. I didn't understand at the beginning and you talked a little bit about it, Cody, was that this came from the memories and testimonies of the platoon. I didn't understand what the point of saying that was, because isn't that what all movies are, based on true stories? So I'm not understanding.
I think the idea here is that it's as authentic as possible, because it's not relying upon some kind of like Hollywood writer to sanitize it. I think the idea is that everything is coming from the direct memory of the people who lived it.
Right. Yeah. And I would have liked to have interviewed. I requested an interview with Ray Mendoza, because I really wanted to ask him that question that you asked. I mean, I want to know where he stands in terms of, he's out of the military now and working with Hollywood. Where does he see not only the Iraq war, but just war in general, and how we get into these things sometimes blindly. And I wanted to get his take on that and making this movie, and how it kind of connected to what he was feeling after the fact. So unfortunately, I didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, which is like a really interesting idea to explore, right? The idea of like the military and how they feel about entering into like conflicts that maybe they don't like understand or agree with or anything like that. Like,
right.
That's a super interesting kind of idea, but not really explored here.
Right. So my favorite war movie of all time is Platoon. And that's about a group, it's about a platoon, of course, but they separate the characters into such interesting and amazing personalities. And I'm just going to have to agree again with Cody on this, is that everybody just felt like the same character doing the same thing. And of course, I think that the reason that it didn't feel, as fleshed out as it should have is because of this. I mean, they were really trying to focus more on the platoon as a whole and how they're trying to get out of this scenario together and try to survive this scenario as one group of men. But in doing so, it hurts the overall take in terms of, breaking up these characters into people that you can, either care about, or maybe one of them is an asshole. And none of that comes into effect at all. They're all very capable of their jobs. You can see and they're all on the same page. They're all doing exactly what they need to do to try to get out of there to survive. But when it comes down to the men as individuals and the men as people that you can really care about in terms of, not just a group of men, but men and individually, it just didn't happen. And I think that's where the story kind of fails. But again, I don't think that's what it was going for. So if you're happy enough to go in there and see this American team, trying to get out of this situation that's really violent and scary, then that's what you'll get. But for me, my war movies, I like them a little bit more fleshed out when it comes to the characterizations, and so that's where I am with Warfare.
Yeah, and we'll get into final thoughts and grades here. And I agree. I mean, I think that the characters, for the most part, in this movie are pretty interchangeable. The thing that they're kind of defined by is the things that happen to them in this movie, like whether or not they are severely injured or whether they're taking a leadership role or something like that. Those are their defining characteristics. Nothing really about them really stands out. And again, this may be by design. Again, it may be the idea that you're supposed to see these people as a unit or whatever it might be. I think for me, again, I think that its display of war, its technical acumen, the way that it uses sound, the way that it uses visuals, the way that it doesn't shine away from the ugly side of things, the way that it shows the sort of intensity and sacrifice and all that stuff, all of that is really great. I think that it feels like a very realistic and well-worn, authentic war movie. Where I think that it fails a little bit is on the sort of movie aspect of it, which is creating compelling characters and creating a compelling narrative. And then also I do feel like in some ways it does fall short of having a message. I don't know that one way or another, I don't care what it is really, honestly. If it's anti-war, if it's pro-military, whatever it is, I just would like to have some kind of perspective, which I think was the idea behind a lot of the criticisms that me and I don't want to speak for Jared, but I think both of us had issues with Civil War, and that it didn't really take a stand one way or another. And I feel like this movie is kind of similar in that it may be speaking this notion about war being hell, and it may be speaking this notion about maybe the Iraq War or maybe war in general being pointless, but that's about as far as it goes with its level of introspection. I think anything else is implied in you're trying to find within it. And I think that it just falls a little bit narratively short in character and short from those perspective of characterization to make it a compelling work of I don't want to say fiction because it actually happened, but a movie, it's not a documentary. This is a narrative movie. And I feel like as a narrative movie, I don't know that it really is all that compelling from that perspective, even though this is a really well executed and at times very tense reenactment of this very real thing that happened. Yeah. So for me, I give it a B-. It's enough to recommend on the sort of merits of its technical acumen and skill and tension building and sort of general rescue storytelling. But I think anyone looking for anything deeper than surface level is not really going to find it here. So B- for me, enough to recommend. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I'll make this short. We were talking about sound Oscars earlier. I would like to see something like this get nominated for a sound Oscar. Sure. I think it did a really good job. It might be coming a little bit too early for people to remember later on in the year, but hopefully they do. Overall, I'm extremely happy that it wasn't about these testosterone-fueled military guys. There's that one movie I always bring up when it comes to these types of movies. Is that I can't remember if it was Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg, where they fall.
Yes, where they fall off the cliff.
Where they fall off the cliff and they're just tumbling down, and then they get up and they dust themselves off, and they're like, America, Yeah. I'm just glad that in this movie somebody didn't get blown up and do the same thing. I just don't like that kind of stuff. So I think that overall, these memories that this one guy, Ray Mendoza, is able to put on film for not only himself, but for the people that he served with was a very commendable for himself. Again, I like my war movies to be a little bit more focused on individual soldiers than the platoon itself. And so I think that it missed the mark on that aspect. But I think overall it did a good job of showing just how ugly war can be, and didn't really take political stance either way, which I didn't hate like you did, or didn't not like you did in Civil War. I like the fact that it was pretty apolitical, but
Me too.
just overall, I think, that's where I am with Warfare. I just great technical aspects of it. A little bit needed a little bit more from the character building. So I'm giving this a B-. I'm still recommending it.
All right. Jocelyn, you didn't find this important enough to see it this week, so you don't have any thoughts.
It would have. I mean, I wish I had gotten an invite. I may have tried to make it work, and maybe driven.
Oh yeah,
to
to
San
hear
Antonio.
to be at that screening.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, on like
You
a
never
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
let
my
me know
fault for not
next
inviting
time.
you.
Thanks.
I'll take the blame for that. You probably would have been here if not. Yeah.
May have.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. So next week, our big movie that we have to cover is Sinners, the new film from Ryan Coogler, and big Warner Brothers release there. So we'll be seeing it late because I think the folks at Warner Brothers don't like us here in San Antonio, and so
Say that again.
we won't be seeing
It's
it.
true.
Yeah. We also have a few other wide releases, including Sneaks, animated movie about shoes. And we've got potentially maybe a movie called The Wedding Banquet. We'll kind of see what comes up, but this is going to be our big kind of like launch of the new website coming with this new episode. So we'll try to do right by everyone and make it a good show. If you want to reach out to us, find us at CineSnob on all social media. Also, again, be on the lookout on April 21st, where the new and improved CineSnob.net launches. We will have all of these reviews that we have here individually archived by the movie. So let's say you don't have an hour and a half to listen to us babble on, and you want to just know what we think about a certain movie. On CineSnob.net in the future here, you will be able to click on the movie and watch just the segment of the movie that we're talking about there and get that. And that'll be really cool, in addition to some other goodies that we'll be introducing here within the next week. So you may want to also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where some content will start to be added throughout the week. And we'll just be more active all around, and it'll be really great. Kiko, anything you want to add or tease as part of CineSnob 2.0 here?
No, I think it's going to speak for itself when it comes up in about a week. So I hope everybody enjoys what we have to offer, and we're always open to suggestions. I remember we would always, when we first started this website, so long ago, we would always ask for suggestions, and we'd be a lot more interactive with our audience. So hopefully that happens a little bit more this time. So if you want to reach out, we used to have a phone number. I don't know if we have that anymore, but reach out to us and and let us know what we can do to make your movie going experience, because we're watching everything. So basically you don't have to. And then also, I'll just point this out. When I went to the movies last night, and I think there was I'm not sure where I read about it, but there was a think piece about the movie going experience when it comes to watching it with a younger generation that is so used to watching stuff at home, and how loud they are or how much they use their cell phone. But last night's experience for me was not good. There was so many people talking around me. I don't understand how people can talk in a movie theater. Maybe I sound like the old man now because I am, but I just don't get it. How are you holding conversations in the middle of a movie? It doesn't make any sense to me. So stop talking. That's my bottom line. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, look, I mean, I think that if
Old
I
man
can,
yells at cloud.
yeah, if I can sort of like piggyback off of this without also sounding old, I think the problem is, number one, there are not enough places like Alamo Drafthouse which will enforce a no talking thing, where at Alamo Drafthouse, if you are talking, you can like write down, hey, this person above me is talking.
They'll take your ass
and
out.
flag it, and they will go talk to the person. If they don't stop, they will kick them out, which I think needs to be the standard at movie theaters. The other thing is, and this is the long-standing thing for me, is that I think the movies should be a communal thing, but I don't think that it should be a social thing, meaning that if you're going to a movie with other people, like, you're not supposed to like talk during the movie. You can talk before and afterwards, and you can experience the movie there, but like, movies and the theater are not meant to like shit talk your way through it or not pay attention or do that kind of thing. Like just stay home if that's what you want to do. Like why are you paying $13 to go like not pay attention and talk during a movie? I don't really get it.
Now, don't take me wrong. I mean, I know, Cody, you know for a fact that if we're sitting together and we see a really bad movie, every so often I'm going to turn around and just laugh at you and say something something stupid, right? Like, yes. I don't know. But I do not let that 2 seconds that I do something trail on for another 30 seconds of rambling. So that's what I've been experiencing.
I'm
recently.
Curious, do you guys think movies will eventually go the way of the Netflix movies and shows where they're saying they're making them now to describe what's happening because they're anticipating that people are on their phones? I wonder if that's now. No, that's a thing.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
They came out. Netflix is saying that they're now incorporating that more into their content, where they're actually like describing what's happening more because people are just on their phones. And I wonder if movies are going to go that way as well.
I don't think so, and I hope not. But I mean, at this point, who knows?
Could you imagine?
I like to live tweet, especially if it's a bad one. I'm like, man.
Oh, that's great. I've done that before. I wish that more stuff like that happened here in town, where we did the. Remember we did that one like very old school way. Maybe this was about 15 years ago when we did it. But what did we watch?
It was Leprechaun in the Hood.
Oh, Leprechaun in the Hood.
I did Troll 2 in the
very
original
cool.
Draft House, and that was a communal experience, as Cody was saying. Like it was a lot of yelling, a lot of talking, a lot of
we went to
interaction.
We went to Alamo Draft House West Lakes and did the evolved version of that. So it used to be called Heckle Vision at Alamo Draft House,
right.
where you could shout shit at the theater.
Right.
And eventually they evolved it to where there was a number that you could text for your shit talking, and you would text, and then it would pop up on the screen alongside the movie. And so Kiko and I went to a screening of Leprechaun in the Hood.
Right.
And we were
Jennifer Aniston is in that one.
Texting our shit talk.
She's in the original one, actually.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, Leprechaun in the Hood, I believe, has Ice-T in the movie.
Oh, that's right.
And let me see if anyone else is famous is in that.
Do you remember? And this was when we had the cell phones where if you wanted to type the letter C, you had to hit 1 3 times.
Oh, right.
So, yeah,
it was like T9 texting.
And I don't know if you remember, the best text of that night, Cody, was at the end of the movie with like maybe 2 minutes left. Mm-hmm. Somebody said something like, I guess I'm not getting my nachos after all.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish that would be brought back. That was fun.
Yeah. Anyway, just before we go, there is a new thing. I don't know if y'all have heard about it. I'm writing a story on it. I've written a story on it that should be coming out in the next couple of days, called Vertical Series, and it kind of ties into what's going on right now with the way that cinema and movies are developing or evolving, I guess, and what a vertical series is. It's a movie that's broken into a lot of episodes, a lot of 60 to 90 second episodes that can be viewed on a cell phone vertically. So if you've seen some of those...
This is the Quibi idea. Basically.
Correct. Quibi idea, but it's gotten a lot more popular, especially in Asia. This is predicted to be in the $15 billion range in the next 2 years. They just made the very first one
Black
in
Mirror shit.
Look,
they just made the first one in San Antonio. So I wrote an article about the director and this movie that just shot in San Antonio. That's a quote unquote vertical series.
Dude,
and so
look, hold on a second. Quibi was a massive failure. Under this entire, like, Quibi lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was supposed to be this next big thing where they were like the whole. You guys know what Quibi stands for, right?
If you say it, I probably will remember, but not off the top of my head.
Quick Bites. QUI is quick, BI is bites. Quick Bites, Quibi. That's what it was supposed to mean. So everything that they made, including entire movies, were uploaded in small chunks. It even had this idea where there was like this Steven Spielberg horror series that was supposed to happen where it was only accessible when the sun went down. So like you can only access the show in nighttime hours, and they had all this ideas in hours,
When
and
the
it
sun
ate
went down.
it ate
Cody's
shit.
cracking me up right now.
This idea lost
I
so
just love
much
that when
money.
The sun went down. Like the visual of like
Yeah.
the sun is down.
Yeah, this movie, this idea lost so much money. If they're gonna say it's the next big thing, like bullshit. This
He is
is
pissed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how different it is from
Yes.
Quibi. It's been compared to it, but there's an app called Real Short, REELSHORT, and there's thousands of these vertical series on there. So in the next couple of years, we'll see.
Go ahead.
Again, mostly most of the views are I'm guessing probably come from Asia, but it's kind of making its way here into the U.S. and I guess we'll have to see. When you see the movie posters, you'll see how cheesy it looks. I mean, it looks like one of those cheesy romance novels you'd see in the grocery store, those kind of things. But
in its first year of being alive, Quibi spent over $1 billion on original content,
He's Googling now.
and it ended up selling its entire content library for under $100 million.
wow.
It ate shit, and nobody liked it. So
We already
best of
have
luck.
vertical narrative videos. It's called TikTok.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Well, I'm not a fan of vertical series, but I thought it was interesting that a lot of people are jumping on board. Some people call them addictive
sense.
because 60 seconds you want to keep on watching to see what happens. But it's a pretty
Cody's so mad.
it's a pretty soap operatic type of content that.
I'm
Cody, I haven't seen the whole thing that was made in San Antonio. I've only seen 2 or 3 episodes to just give me an idea. But I would love for you and I to sit down and do a heckle vision of a vertical series.
I love to respond, but I'm watching the new Scorsese right now.
Yeah, right. It's a Scorsese AI. He's not gonna be.
Yeah, I would love to do that, but yeah. Well, so look forward to Kiko's story coming out, and and you know how I feel about it, but so
Vertical 7 Samurai.
oh boy.
Can't wait.
And like 30-second chunks, so there's like
Oh God!
there's
So
like
it's gonna be like
1,000
days.
episodes.
Could you imagine how frustrated the cinematographer is on a set like that? Like,
Yeah,
guys.
he's doing like this panning shot, and then they stop in the middle of it to create a new episode.
God.
It's like I have this wonderful landscape, and it's like.
Yeah. All right. So again, if you want to reach us, CineSnob everywhere on social media, CineSnob.net. Don't go there yet. It's not ready yet, but on April 21st, it'll be ready for prime time. And that's it. So anything to add, fellow podcast friends?
Nope, we're good. See you next
All
week.
right. Well, on that note, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.